And if change is constant, your experience is not worth much because you've never seen this situation before. And so the leaders that will be more successful in the next 10 years are likely to be what I call adaptive leaders that react to the situation they find themselves in today versus leaning on 20 years of experience of what would have happened yesterday.
Hi, I'm Belden Menkus. Welcome to the Purposeful Strategist, the podcast that shifts the conversation about purpose and strategy from what organizations should do to what business leaders actually are doing and what they've learned along the way.
My guest today is Phill Robinson. His career spans decades of leadership across enterprise software and private equity-backed technology businesses, most notably as CEO of Iris Software Group, one of the UK's largest private software companies. In 2022, he co-founded Boardwave, a European community bringing together tech founders, CEOs, and chairs to strengthen the leadership infrastructure behind the region's software ecosystem. Boardwave has quickly emerged as one of the most influential tech leadership communities in Europe. Phill, welcome to the Purposeful Strategist.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here.
Really pleased to have you. So just to dive fairly straight into it, what was the problem Boardwave was created to fix? What's at stake around it working or not?
Well, I have spent a career in software, and during that career, I've lived both in Europe and in Silicon Valley. And we've seen through the internet era, massive dominance of the US. They've built, since 2020, built companies which have got multi-trillion-dollar valuations and hugely successful. And Europe, by contrast, has had very limited success at building large, scalable, successful software businesses. And so in the industrial age, we built some great companies. In the internet era, not so much. So there's lots of reasons why that might be. We'll talk about culture and founder risk appetite in Europe, or they'll talk about access to capital, or they'll talk about a fragmented market. But there's lots of reasons to be optimistic for the future. We're at the point of a massive shift in the technology platform we all use from the internet to AI. And that represents an opportunity for Europe to catch up and maybe lead and maybe build some global businesses. But to do that, some things are missing. And so my observation was living in California was that people in Silicon Valley are very open-minded to working together, sharing ideas, best practice, and mentoring and supporting each other. So one great success gets the next one because they sort of share their collective experience each time. And in Europe, we've got some really great leaders in tech because of geography isolated, sitting on their own, not very connected to each other, and not often sharing their best ideas and best practice and supporting or mentoring each other. And so, the idea of Boardwave was to try and create this community of the best and brightest leaders in tech in Europe so that we could work together to create the conditions for success that exist in the US, so that we can build really successful, scalable global businesses in this age of AI. And I thought it was a decent idea. It was part of my retirement plan from the software industry, which I've been working in for 38 years. And maybe this was a part-time job with a couple of hundred members. It's gone from strength to strength. It's been very successful. It brings together now an ecosystem of support for founders. We've got 2,500 members. We've launched in UK, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Nordics, Netherlands. It's a vibrant community of some great people that are getting huge benefit from being part of it. And the best thing of all is it's a social enterprise. So it's not there to make money or a profit. It's there to support the mission of building leading global companies in Europe. And it's absolutely critical to the success of the European economy, to economic growth, to our sovereignty, and to Europe being successful over the next 10 years, when my belief is we're going to see as much change in the next 10 years as we've seen in the last 100 because of AI. And so we need to have these people supported and successful and help Europe to be successful.
And so you've vastly exceeded your goals there. What do you put that stunning success down to? Why has it been so much bigger than you had sort of started off thinking it might be?
Well, obviously caters to a need, right? An unmet need. So there's a compelling reason why people want to be together and help each other. I think it's, if you ever go to a conference and the conference is, you've been invited to, it's got some great speakers, but it's free. The reason it's free is because someone's going to sell you something. We're not selling anything. And so people can come. Membership of Boardwave is free for those members, for people that qualify. It's quite a high bar to get in terms of the quality of the people that we let through the door, but it's free.
Mm-hmm.
And so and it's a social enterprise, so it's not making money. And that creates this sense of community. It creates a sense of, I'm not in charge. And they're all collectively in charge of building this community together. And so I think this sense of community is the key to its success. And then somebody joins, gets value, brings somebody else, who brings somebody else. And eventually you have, a lot of people that are delivering real value to each other within the group.
And it's a social enterprise, so it's not looking to make profit, but I assume it has costs and therefore has to, from somewhere, have money coming in. What's that look like?
So the way we decided to run the model was to create a consortium of blue chip organizations that basically together build the fund that funds the program.
Mm-hmm.
So these are typically organizations that surround or support software founders.
Mm-hmm.
And so their services are actually helpful to them. So, we've got, I think today, something like 70 or 80 partners. They all put some money each year into this pot. And the pot of money is what we use to employ our team and build the program and deliver it to the community. So, there are organizations from, McKinsey to OC&C to Apex Partners, as a PE company, a lot of PE companies, actually, a lot of investors, a lot of VCs, some headhunters and some lawyers and some, all the people that supply to these leaders coming together to help and support them by funding the initiative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what sort of a typical program set of activities, if somebody newly joined, what would they experience in the first year or so?
Well, when they join, we ask them to fill in a questionnaire about themselves. So we'll ask some unusual questions. We'll ask about their issues and their concerns, their challenges, things about the business. What did they do before they were a CEO? What do they enjoy or dislike, not enjoy doing? And build a picture of them as an individual and use that information to match them with a mentor. So the other question we ask is, will you be a mentor? And will you give pledge some time to the program to do that?
Right.
So about half of the people volunteer to mentor others and give time. And so one of the things we do is using that information is to try and match people together. So you can, if you want to have a mentor that's probably, maybe you can pick somebody that's 2 rungs up the ladder from where you are and seeing what you're seeing a few years ago, or you can say, I want somebody in another country because I'm thinking about expanding my business in that country. Or I want somebody that's younger than me and is immersed in AI because I need to understand that better. So you can decide. The first thing we do, though, when people join is we offer them the opportunity to be in a group, what we call a breakout group, which is a group of 8 CEOs who we collect together based on common characteristics and curate, and we give them a coach. And with the coach, they get together 4 times a year. And in those sessions, they sit together and talk about their issues and concerns and problems. And typically, there's enough knowledge and talent in the room and experience to be able to work through them together and solve them. And if there isn't, we'll bring an expert in next time to help solve the problem. So this is about trying to build a mini community for a CEO. So he's got a group of 8 people, knows this group very, very well by the end of the year. He can always call them, they know who he or she are and what their challenges are or what their business does. And actually saying that is great. It's great stuff. So that's something we do with them. So there's sort of personal development, there's coaching, there's mentoring. We do a lot of networking events where we'll get leaders of industry, leaders in technology to come talk about a topic of interest to the members, which they've defined as interesting, or talk about their journey, their career journey or their success or their failures, or we find interesting ways to open a debate up and get people talking over dinner around some of those topics. We do an annual conference. We run about 50 events a year across Europe. We run online masterclasses. I think it's a broad program now that's really supporting entrepreneurship and supporting founders and leaders in tech.
Phill, one of the things I think that's, for me anyway, particularly interesting about what you've designed there is, you've really got scale. You've got people in lots of different places. You've got I suspect, lots of different types of businesses, different sizes of businesses. But then through these small breakout groups, you've also created a sense of sort of intimacy and I actually know these people, they actually know me. Was that part of the design right from the beginning, or is that something that you sort of developed as you went?
It was something we developed as we went because we never thought it would scale like this. And so if you join it, and we've got an online platform that you can use to interrogate the data and see who there is and who you might want to talk to. But it's just this fast wall of 2,500 people. You know, my God, what do I do now? How do I find my tribe? How do I find people that can help me? And that's a bit intimidating. So we chose to try and make it more personal, intimate by offering this opportunity to get together with a small group. And as you join that group, then they may turn up to some dinners and events that some of the rest of their group are also there, and they can introduce them to others in the community and they can get started.
If you don't mind, could I ask a little bit about you? You've talked a bit about your career, but maybe you could flesh that out a little bit more. And then I'd be particularly interested in what do you think it was about you or about the situation that led you to go, to make that critical leap from there's this problem and somebody should do something about it to there's this problem and I'm going to do something about it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been in software for my whole career. I spent the first half working for American software firms who were scaling or opening up in Europe and helping them to build their business in Europe. I, out of university, lived in California as a programmer, but obviously spent a lot of time here. Then went back in the noughties as CMO of a company called Salesforce and lived in Silicon Valley for a few years then. And then I came back because my kids wanted to go to university back in Europe. And I thought they should go to Stanford, but they disagreed. So we came back.
That's not uncommon, isn't it?
No disagreement there. Anyway, we came back to Europe and I decided at that point was a good point to sort of change direction and be a CEO and try and run my own businesses. And so I've run 3. The first was a venture-backed startup, pre-revenue, small. We grew and sold. This is back at the end of the noughties. And then from there, I went and run 2 bigger businesses for private equity. One was Iris in the UK, which you mentioned in the introduction. Then I went to live in the Netherlands and run a bigger business called Exact, which we sold in 2021 to KKR, which is a PE company, successfully. And I'd said to them, I'd been diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2017. And so I'd been working with Parkinson's for 3 years and said to them, look, I'm not Dutch. I'm not going to live in the Netherlands forever. I'll work in transition for you to get the next CEO in place. But ultimately, my goal is to go back to the UK and sort of retire or do something maybe less grueling than being a CEO of a big tech company. And that's sort of what I did. So came back to the UK and got heavily involved with Parkinson's charities and, trying to help research, working on research projects for trying to find a cure for the disease. At the same time, I wanted to stay connected to the software industry, and I felt like I'd learned a lot. I wanted to share what I'd learned with other people. And so this idea of this club, it wasn't a grand idea of, that many people. It was just a small group of people getting together to try and fix some of the structural problems in Europe around technology. Was born, and I went to a couple of investors who I knew well, said, can you give me, I think I said 25 grand to get this thing off the ground. And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not sure. And they said, what are we going to get out of it? And I said, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
And a couple of them foolishly said, yes, they would give me a bit of money to get going. And we ran a launch event 2022 September with a couple of hundred people there, with the promise of trying to build this community and see what happened. And, the rest is history. Those 2 partners are now 2 amongst 70 or 80. And we've got all these other people. I think the other thing I'll say is there is a connection between Boardwave and Parkinson's. So if we raise more capital than we spend at the end of a year, and we look at our cash flow requirements, we've got surplus to our cash flow requirements versus making a profit, what we do is donate it to research into Parkinson's. So we give money back to medical research as well. So that's a good thing.
So you're sort of addressing 2 things on your mind somewhat through the same vehicle. I think that if you don't mind my saying so, I think it's very clever. How did the strategy for Boardwave, including that idea of it's, you're going to donate some of the surplus to Parkinson's research. How did all that develop? Was it sort of you? Was there a group that was around you?
It was my original idea sitting at the kitchen table. I got a co-founder called Kath together. We sort of sketched it out. And one of the things that there's a guy called Mark Benioff who was, or still is, CEO of Salesforce, which has been a hugely successful company in the last 25 years, who I'd worked for in the Valley. He would say to me, tactics dictate strategy. Mm-hmm. You may not always know what the strategy should be, but if you go and do something and see what happens, and when you see the things that work and the things that don't work, use that to moderate where you go. And I think we've done some of that with Boardwave, and so some of it's been bottom up. We've learned, we've experienced, we've figured out the things that work and do more of them, and figure the things that don't work and do less of them. And then we've done some top-down planning as we've gone along to develop the strategy, and this mission of sort of a 10-year mission to make Europe a global leader in technology. And that 10-year mission coincides with my view of the next 10 years is going to see constant change and shifts in society around AI. And so we have to make sure that Europe's successful with its own technology platforms versus relying on other people's.
And you talked about this sort of mix blend of bottom up and top down. Who's the we in those sentences that are seeing what's working bottom up and coming up with the top down picture?
Well, so at the beginning, it was getting a group of people that I thought were helpful and influential and had some time to give to me, and sitting around a table together. Call them our group of, let's call them advisors, order of advisors. I think there were 12 of them at the beginning. Then it became, as we got a bit bigger and formalized the structure of the business, we created a board of directors. So we have a board which gets together regularly. But it's also the employees as well, right? So sitting with the employees, which is now a team of, I think, 14 or 15 people, getting their feedback. And most importantly, most critically, it's just talking to the community the whole time. What's missing? What do you need? What do you not need more of? If you're a CEO that's running a scaling business, what's the issue right now? This year, does everybody else have the same issue? If they do, then we should try and address it.
And you've got 2,500 members, and you sort of went through a pretty impressive list of countries you're already in. What's next? Is it more members? Is it more countries? Is it sort of deeper engagement with the members you've got, trying to affect things sort of in terms of government policy? Where next?
Well, some of all of that, but basically, it's making sure we drive value to the members we have, first of all, and helping them be successful. So when we look at this rate at which European tech businesses scale, let's say to $100 million of revenue, just as a benchmark, then it takes about, on average, 15 years to get there. In the US right now, it takes 10. And with AI companies today, it's taking 3 or 4. So the rate at which you scale a business is a key determinant of success. Because if you're an investor, VC, you invest in a European company or a US company, and one scales more quickly and more successfully than the other, I'll put my money with the US company. So as a consequence of that, we have lack of capital. We have founders that are on a longer journey, therefore become more risk averse, which means they slow down. And as they slow down, they get acquired by often a US parent. And so the cycle goes round. We've got to break the cycle and help them scale more rapidly. This rate at scale is really important. And that getting more of our members to scale more successfully to 100 million and beyond is a key metric, because scaling and rate of change is the thing that's accelerating at the moment.
And do you have a sense that you can already see that the rate of scaling has increased? I suspect it might be a bit difficult to measure across such a mix of members and countries.
We can measure it. I'll give you an example. The top 25% of our members scale at a rate at the same or better than US companies on average. So we need to try and distill down what are they doing in the top 25% differently to the other 75% and imbibe the others with some of those skills and capabilities. I think the other thing we talked about recently was the rate of growth of non-AI tech businesses and AI tech businesses. And a year ago, they were both growing about the same, which is like 28% on average. This year, non-AI tech businesses grew 30%, or expected to grow 30%. AI businesses are growing at 54%.
Right.
So there's a gap beginning to appear between AI and non-AI tech businesses. And that's going to the gulf is going to continue to widen. And so The question is, what do you do about that? We need to turbo boost the AI companies' speed. You need to continue on that trajectory and be successful. You also need to help the other companies decide if they want to transition. Do I want to transition my business to AI from as you say, a SaaS or a cloud business and become an AI first business? Because actually my growth rates are going to increase and improve, and I'm going to deliver more value to my customers. We can measure it, and AI is a key platform for growth.
I mean, there's some people who would argue, and I'm sure you've heard these arguments, that the reason that Europe, particularly around tech, doesn't grow as fast is, it's a fragmented market, it's a cultural thing, some of the things you talked about before. But it sounds like when you're approaching it, you're almost saying, what's that top 25% of fast growers doing that the rest aren't? And almost saying, yes, maybe all those factors are there, but let's focus on what we can do. Is that right? Or are there other things you're also trying to address that are more systemic, more external in the environment?
Well, the environment's definitely changing. So, it used to have an office in every country in Europe to sell to at least business software. You'd have an office in every country in order to sell to your corporate clients. Today, you can sell from one central location. With the pandemic, people got used to videos and video conferencing. I can build a relationship with somebody over video versus having to travel all over Europe to talk to them. I can sell to them over video. I can distribute my software through the cloud. I don't have to physically install software everywhere. AI allows me to instantly translate software into any language without any effort. So there's lots of barriers that come down to make it more of a common market than it would have been before. And then, when we talk to founders and we talk about the problem they're trying to solve, you're starting a software business today or an AI business today, solve a universal problem. Don't solve a problem that's only is unique to the UK. Because if it's unique to the UK, you can only scale as big as the UK market. And I think that's in the past, that's what we've done. We've been a bit parochial because the market's fragmented. We go, well, I'm Italian, let's build an Italian software business. Or I'm French, let's build a French software business. And you solve a local problem. Well, that doesn't migrate globally. So when we built Salesforce.com, back in the noughties, we thought about CRM because CRM is universally the same. The way people interact with customers and sell and market their wares is almost universally the same everywhere in the world. We build one product for the global market. So think about that when you build your software business versus with Iris, it was a successful software company, but it's really just a UK business because it does tax returns, and the tax code in the UK is unique to the UK. You can't really scale beyond that. So think about solving a global problem as well.
And are you fairly optimistic that in the next 10 years we're going to get to sort of where you think we need to get to?
I'm optimistic. I think there's lots of challenges. I think it requires a different sort of leadership to the one we've seen in business so far. So if you think about the way people build their careers today, I think we all value experience over most other characteristics. So, I might be in my position as a CEO because I've climbed the corporate ladder. I've started a company that I've scaled. I'm in that position as a CEO because of years of experience, and I lean on that experience in order to make good decisions. And change is episodic. So change happens once every few years. We might have a pandemic or a financial crisis of 2008 or a dot-com boom and bust, which create economic crises, which we then adapt to in the gap in between. So there's episodes of change. As we go into the next 10 years, and I said, I think that in the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot of change in the societies we've had in the last 100, then change isn't episodic, it's constant. And if change is constant, your experience is not worth much because you've never seen this situation before. And so the leaders that will be more successful in the next 10 years are likely to be what I call adaptive leaders that react to the situation they find themselves in today versus leaning on 20 years of experience of what would have happened yesterday and perhaps working in concert with others around them in a community that have seen the same things happening to them at the same time. And how did they react to it? What did they do? And trying things out and failing fast and trying it out. If it worked, great, do more. If it didn't work, stop it quickly and move on. And the ability to pivot and change direction of your business quickly. So if something becomes existential because AI has changed the way your industry works, you have to move in another direction quickly, otherwise you won't be here. So leadership is changing, the way business operates is changing, and that's all powered by AI technology, which is the industry I'm in which we've seen that sort of shift and change for the last 20 years. And we're going to see it across the rest of society as we move forward. So I definitely think there's a massive opportunity for Europe to lead. I think we've got the skills, the talent, the people, the capital. We just need to line everything up in the right direction to get us into a place where we can take advantage of that and become leaders and take advantage of this change that's going to happen versus becoming a victim of it.
And do you think the model of the Boardwave model of creating a network that connects really talented people across different countries, across different companies, and supports and educates and networks and all of that, is that sort of uniquely applicable to tech and particularly to AI? Or is that something that someone in a different industry could say, well, let's do Boardwave for transport, or let's do Boardwave for retailing?
I'm sure there's a Boardwave for retailing or transport. I mean, there must be. If there isn't, there should be. It's not unique to technology. It's about pooling the wisdom of a community together and all gaining benefit from it versus holding it to myself, keeping it proprietary and not learning from our mistakes. That seems eminently sensible to me in any industry that we're in. It doesn't matter whether it's tech or automotive or whatever it is. There's a lot of industries at the moment that are being completely redesigned. The automotive industry is one of them. We see, threats from Chinese car importers. We see the EV vehicle revolution in the last 15, 20 years. We're now seeing autonomous driving with AI. The valuation of Tesla and BYD in China is as much as all the Western automotive companies put together. The whole industry is changing. You'd think that they'd want to get together and share their best practices and understand how to react to those challenges and changes in order to best respond and best compete versus doing it all on their own.
So it seems to me that some of that activity has historically been mediated by either professional bodies or, kind of trade bodies. But it seems to me Boardwave's a different kind of beast. It's a collaborative community. It's a social enterprise. Do you think that model as a model is one we're going to see more of around lots of issues, industry, competition and growth, maybe social issues, or is it we kind of invented it for us because that's what we needed?
I don't know about you, but I think about professional bodies and I feel like I'm stepping back into the 1960s or something. I'm probably wrong. There are probably some very good ones, but I just have this sense of, middle-aged white guys sitting there, governing an industry. And I'm not sure that's how things get done anymore. And I just think there's probably a better way to do it, which is inclusive and collaborative and contemporary. And that's what we saw at Boardwave. So I don't know whether our model is of use for anybody else. If it is, great. But it works for us and it's doing great things for the industry in Europe.
Yeah. If someone listening were interested, A, in joining Boardwave, or B, learning more about kind of how it works and how it does, what would be a good way for them to do that?
To learn out what we do, we've got a great website. It's at boardwave.org, which has got lots of resources on it, which show you some of the things we do and how we do it, and talks about how we position ourselves and the service we deliver. If someone interested in joining, they can apply on the website. So there's an application button right on the homepage. Be prepared to fill in quite a detailed questionnaire about yourself when you apply there. And then typically you need a nominator, someone's already in the community, but if you don't have one, feel free to apply and we'll have a look at the application on its merit. And if it's meritorious and appropriate, we'll let you join.
That sounds great. It's one of the things I take out of that. It really is, I'd say democratic, but maybe inclusive is sort of a better word, that there's no preset barrier, that you don't have to have a particular degree. You don't have to be from a particular place. Is it entirely Europe?
It's designed to be European only because it's where we have an issue that we're trying to solve. I'm not saying others wouldn't get benefit from it, but we definitely have a need to improve R&D and innovation in Europe, improve our economic growth, take control of our own AI sovereignty. These are all big issues of today in Europe. Yeah, that's where we focus there, and that's where we continue to focus. It's very democratic. We deliberately design it as free, and people still go, what? All this value for free? Surely, what's the catch? There's no catch. But because you might be a founder that's bootstrapped with not a lot of capital, who wouldn't pay a big fee to join something like this, which is what normally would happen. Or you might be a VC-backed startup that's running out of cash and needs some help about how to raise my next funding round. They're not going to pay big fees, and they shouldn't have to. So anybody can join, from people that are senior in the industry that have run Workday and SAP and someone's on the board of Porsche. There's a whole group of people that are very, very senior, but there's also a whole group of people that are doing this for the first time with their tech startup.
Phill, for me, that's been a really interesting insight into both some of the challenges that Europe faces around AI and tech, but also a model that I just think is really interesting as a way to create something positive without getting tangled up in some of the slowness of a lot of other models of people who are trying to do something good. Is there anything else, before we wrap up, anything else you'd like to share with the audience? Either it might be a piece of advice to founders, something about what you see for the future, or anything else.
I think we're at the beginning of dawn of a new era, and just encourage people to engage with AI in whatever way they can to understand the sort of seismic shifts that we're likely to see in the next few years, and get ahead of it and be benefit from it versus being victims. I can't stress it enough. You've got to be a player in the game with AI, with whatever business you're running, and take hold of it, grip it, understand it, take advantage of it, because it's going to be a force for good, a force for good in the wrong hands, but a force for good in the right hands. And so, I think people should really take it seriously.
I think that's a great, great message to end on. Phill, thanks for joining us. It's been great to have you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Purposeful Strategist. In addition to being available on our website, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, please do follow us and leave us a 5-star review. It helps others find the podcast. Thanks again, and join us soon for the next episode of The Purposeful Strategist.